Hi, folks. You're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this radio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about ideological law, um, law or legal cases, court cases where the outcome is largely predetermined, but the structure of the case is, and the hearing and how information is brought out, how cross-examinations take place. Everything is structured in ideological terms. And increasingly, I'm seeing this all over the legal establishment, and where the resources of the state, the law enforcement resources, the legal resources, the court resources, all the resources of the state are directed towards producing ideological outcomes through the legal cases. Now, this is something that typically only happens in totalitarian regimes. Not that it can't happen in rule of law, due legal process regimes, just it's very rare. It happens, but it's rare. Now, I was recently having lunch with a lawyer who's retiring, of long-standing, and of some repute actually, who's retiring. I won't say which jurisdiction, but he was always very, very careful and extremely circumspect about any cases that he may have been involved with or had knowledge of. But he moves and grooves with all the heavies in that set, so he's without doubt well informed. But I'd noticed that there was quite a few sort of rape cases that appeared recently, which I thought was just a sudden or recent development. And I've noticed how cases that seem extremely weak against straight white males are being picked up and pursued by the Department of Justice in various jurisdictions, and I found it a bit odd. It's not cheap to do these things. Now they've got like fixed overheads anyway. The prosecutors on staff are already budgeted for, and it's not like they've got to suddenly find the money, but to prosecute these cases. But they seem quite flimsy. Now, I've compared them to cases where brown and black people are being dragged into court, and the cases against the brown and black people seem to be, really open and shut. There's witnesses, there's use of weapons, and the proverbial gun to the head type stuff. So, a rape case that involves very clear beating someone up or using a weapon to threaten or intimidate them, these are quite clear cases, or where there's multiple persons involved in some sort of pack type incident. Then these are pretty much open and shut cases. But in cases where the cases where he said, she said, on the flimsiest of evidence, where even on balance of probability it's rather unlikely, the Department of Prosecutions is still going after those cases. Where they involve straight white males. At first I thought, well, maybe I'm just misreading the situation, or maybe I'm not sufficiently aware of the issues, and so I didn't think that much of it. But it came up in conversation with this retiring lawyer, or retired actually. He's retired a couple of days ago. This retired lawyer, and so I sort of mentioned this. In reality, how many cases, rape cases, actually come to the courts? And I thought he'd say, some, mostly it's other stuff that, and he was quite open to it. He said, no, there's in terms of a single category, rape could even be the biggest particular category of case that the courts are hearing. And these aren't the lower courts, like the petty sessions where they're quibbling over who owes who $5 or something. These are the higher courts, directly underneath the courts of appeal and that sort of thing. So the higher courts are hearing it, and these courts have the power to put people in prison for 20 years and that sort of stuff. So juries are often put in, but there doesn't have to be a jury. It can be a judge-only case based on the evidence. But as it came up in conversation, and this retiring lawyer was again talking quite casually. I mean, to them, it's just background noise of their job, really, I guess. But they it was mentioned that politically the courts and departments of prosecution and justice departments are under a huge amount of political pressure to get more straight white males convicted of rape. And for no reason other than ideological reasons. Straight white males tend not to it happens, but straight white males tend not to engage in violence in order to gain, an opportunity for intimate relations. So the cases against straight white males are the lower, because the definition of what constitutes rape has been expanded out of sight. So technically, if she consents, but half a second before ejaculation, she says stop or I don't consent anymore, then it's still technically at least a case of rape. And departments of prosecution that may not have picked this up years ago are now picking it up for political and ideological reasons, not because there's any huge degree of criminality. Now, the ideology is such that, well, straight white males are evil, and not only do they cause climate change, but they've oppressed women for centuries. So even if completely innocent men get charged and sent to prison, it's still equalising in this eternal universe of justice. They're only getting their just desserts because they're straight white males, and which means they're fucking damn Nazi fascist Hitlers. And so they're only getting what's coming to them. And so what if they didn't do this? They're guilty of climate change, or they're guilty of not showing proper respect to transgenders, or something, so what if we get them on we falsely accuse them and put them in prison for rape? They only did something else bad because they're fucking fascist Nazis. So really, justice still kind of works out. What's your problem? Are you a Nazi? So this is the sort of ideology that's creeping in, not only to departments of prosecutions, which is shot through with activists and lesbians and people that have been trained to believe, gender studies, law type thing. It's trained to believe that all straight white men are evil. But it based on certainly the information I've got, the Department of Prosecutions won't touch he said, she said cases if they're black or brown, if the man is black or brown. But they will pursue very clear cases of again, the proverbial gun to the head and where there's a pack involved and that sort of thing. But the straight white males, it's quite rare. Now, their concern is that not enough, talk about equity, not enough straight white males are being convicted of rape. Now, that must mean there's something wrong. I mean, we all know straight white males are all evil fascist Nazis. So why aren't they being prosecuted? Why aren't they being convicted at a higher rate? There must be something wrong. Where's the equity, for goodness sakes? Now, because the rape cases involving black and brown people often tend to involve clear violence with witnesses and stab wounds, and all sorts of clear evidence, DNA evidence, and the whole thing. Whereas evidence against white men is he said, she said. There's no DNA evidence. The circumstantial evidence is a bit basic, and it's not something that a properly functioning Department of Prosecutions or Justice Department would bother going after. It's just not enough. But they're under political pressure and ideological pressure to pursue these cases. So now there's a case just recently that I saw where the person who's complaining is holed up in a special lesbian activist legal NGO and is being funded and looked after by this NGO. And I had a look at the way they're responding to cross-examination, and it's very clearly choreographed and scripted. They're told to, in the event the evidence goes against them, they're caught in a lie. They've obviously been drilled and instructed. Bit like that. That woman who they were using to try and get at Brett Kavanaugh in the Supreme Court in the United States, Christine Blasey Ford. How carefully coached and choreographed and stage managed her performance was. Well, this woman who's accusing a guy of he maybe raped her, she doesn't know, she's not sure. Again, how would a case like this even get to court? But politically, and ideologically, it's good enough for the. He's straight, he's white, he's male. What the fuck else do you need to know? Drag his ass into court and throw him in prison. So whenever she gets caught in a lie, or the evidence is found to be flaky and hopeless, which is often, she's responding with choreographed, trained, stage managed comments of you're oppressing me, you're an oppressor, but you're a male, and to the lawyer. So she's obviously been trained to do this, and yet not one question by the lawyer cross-examining her is, who are these lesbians you're staying with? Have they told you what to say? And they need to call them to the stand. And for a clearly choreographed and well-rehearsed ideological sort of exercise, then the people who are putting this woman up to it and aiding and abetting this ideological perversion of the judicial and justice process, they should be dragged in. Now, the guy knows, and it's widely known in the industry, the legal industry, that these sort of things are going. But so the lawyer representing the guy knows this, yet says nothing about it, mentions nothing. There's not even an oblique reference to it, and yet clearly it's a decisive, a huge factor, a prominent factor in the case. Yet not one, no one from the Department of Justice is being called up and saying, well, what political pressure have you been put under? I understand you're a gender studies major. I have here your thesis in my hand where you say all men are guilty of rape and they shouldn't even have a trial. And can you say you've objectively applied? There's absolutely a vast sea of opportunity to go chasing after this, yet not one of them does it. Now the guy who's being accused here, I doubt he's quite young. I doubt he's old enough to or experienced and knowledgeable enough to understand what's going on. But has anyone told? I don't think so. So everyone knows that it's an ideological charade, except for him. He's the one who goes into prison. Now, if he's acquitted or declared innocent or whatever, then he's still got masses of legal bills. He'll be ruined for decades into the future. They won't give him expenses. And whereas the woman just walks free. Didn't work out, and didn't okay, I didn't get him, and she'll just walk straight out the door. Doesn't owe anyone a penny, and other than the annoyance of the exercise and so on. But she's been told she's on an ideological mission. So we need to understand that increasingly, whether it's the January 6th committee or whatever it is, that increasingly the law is being turned into an ideological instrument to be at the whim of the globalization project to crush all opposition, and part of that is to create dissent or to create division, amongst genders, race, climate, and trans activism, all that sort of stuff, to create fault lines and exploit them and rub salt and whatnot into them and scratch and tear at scabs and so on, and do that endlessly until Western society effectively is crushed. And this is part of that. So we've got a situation where the body politic in the West is willfully and with premeditation is chasing after straight white males, in the case of rape, where the women who've got no case are being encouraged by NGOs who are lavishly funded by the globalists, being encouraged by NGOs saying it's no cost to you, it won't cost you a penny, and we'll even pay you, we'll pay your accommodation, your food. We'll cover every conceivable cost because you're not working, because you're attending court and so on. We will look after, and we'll give you a nice job in an NGO afterwards. Now, that alone should be perversion of justice. You don't need to go any further. So they're being put up to it and fun. Whereas a normal person would go, gee whiz, I can't work while I'm doing this. The stress, the strain. How am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to put food on the table? How am I going to pay travelling costs? So they just wouldn't take the case up. In an ordinary or a sane world, the Department of Justice would look at it and say, well, there's no facts here. She said that maybe she might have been raped. She doesn't know. There's no physical evidence. There's no DNA evidence. There's not even decent circumstantial evidence here. The fact that they might have had a bit of a kissing and smooching session a year ago, that's not evidence that anything happened in terms of an alleged rape. So, and they wouldn't take the case up because of this ideological pall that's hanging over the whole thing. The Department of Prosecution is taking the case up. The ideological fanatics via the NGOs are encouraging women with the flimsiest of cases to come forward on the basis, well, he's a straight white male. Okay, maybe he didn't do anything. Maybe he didn't, but that doesn't matter. Here's an opportunity to get another straight white male and stick it up those fucking fascist Nazi Hitlers. And that's a good thing. So what if there's a bit of perjury? So what if there's ideology? Who cares? And it's these people that are taking over the Justice Department at all levels. And we really need to be concerned now. Now this lawyer sort of treats it as, oh, well, that's how it is, shoulder shrug. That's what we have to deal with. That's the fad at the moment. So it'll pass, and other fads will come and go. And, I'm still getting paid. I do all right, and that sort of stuff. And it's now you'll see lawyers come out armies of lawyers come out because the black lesbian from Africa is going to be deported, and it's frontline headline news, and everyone's getting a lather about it. But when a completely innocent straight white male is demonstrably set up by not only the state but by the NGOs and the globalist project to go to prison for something that not only didn't do, but something that never even happened, then no one's getting up, no one's saying. And every press article you see, and sometimes there's the higher profile ones, you see press articles, but every press article is hugely sympathetic to the allegation, but not the person who's being falsely accused. You've been with Tassos today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.